Okay, thinking of a swamp in terms of its ecological value is fine for most people, but politicians want to know, how does a swamp value us in terms of economics? So here's an ecological comparison. In the swamp, you've got little teensy animals, amphipods, ostracods, copepods, little crustaceans, the plankton of the swamp, the plankton of the river, that are in turn, they're feeding on digested remains of plants, broken down plants. And in turn, the Daphnia and other planktonic animals are eaten by small fishes, mosquito fish, baby sunfish. Those in turn are eaten by larger sunfishes and others, who are in turn eaten by still larger fishes. So in this food pyramid, thinking of a food pyramid divided into portions, in order to climb a rung in the food pyramid, you have to multiply the amount of energy required to climb that step by 10. So in this exercise, imagine a small fish, a mosquito fish. An individual mosquito fish weighs about 1 gram. If I had a handful of them, I'd have about 1 pound of mosquito fish in my cupped hands. 1 pound of mosquito fish, hundreds of animals, requires at least 10 pounds of little teensy to get to be that pound. Now, what eats the little mosquito fish? Another fish called a sunfish, which is or brim, we call them. A 1 pound sunfish has to eat at least 10 pounds of mosquito fish equivalent in order to get to be 1 pound. You have to multiply the energy by 10. 10 pounds of mosquito fish had to eat at least 100 pounds of little teensy. Now, what eats the sunfish? A largemouth bass, a game fish. It's a big freshwater fish, predator, that eats smaller fishes. A 1 pound bass had to eat at least 10 pounds of sunfish equivalent, which had to eat at least 100 pounds of mosquito fish equivalent, which had to eat at least 1,000 pounds of little teensy. A 1 pound bass isn't anything to brag about. A 10 pound bass had to eat at least 100 pounds of sunfish equivalent, which had to eat at least 1,000 pounds of mosquito fish equivalent, which had to eat at least 10,000 pounds, 5 tons. The equivalent of a school bus in little teensy is required to produce 1 10-pound bass.
Amazing.
So where is the economics in this? The pursuit and capture of the largemouth bass is a $150 million industry in North Carolina alone.
Wow.
In Florida, it's 1.2 roughly billion dollars annually. In Texas, 1.2 billion dollars. California, it's almost $2 billion. Just the pursuit and capture of the largemouth bass, which oddly enough, we don't keep, we throw them back, because largemouth bass biomagnify mercury, methyl mercury.
Good God.
Which coats the bodies of little teensy that get eaten by mosquito fish, who concentrate methyl mercury in their fatty tissue. They get eaten by sunfish, which further magnify methyl mercury, who get eaten by bass, further magnifying. So we have these people who are going out chasing largemouth bass in boats that cost upwards of $40,000 on $2,000 trailers hooked to a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 pickup truck. So they've got an $80,000 investment to chase, catch, and release largemouth bass. Because they release the bass, they don't have dinner, so they go to a restaurant. Because they've got an $80,000 fishing rig out in the parking lot, they're not sleeping on the ground, they're going to a hotel. All of those things add up to an economic engine fueled not by the bass. I argue it is fueled by the little teensy.
Super species.